Hi there. Thank you so much for listening to Grounded in Maine today. My name is Amy Fagan, and my guest today is Lynne Bowman. And Lynne is going to be talking to us about a few things. But one of the things that really caught me was talking about chronic disease and food, like eating food for joy, for real joy and for health. And I love that message because so much of it seems like it's almost like everything is so educational and it's so practical and has this purpose, but then, we also we need to enjoy that. Like food is, I've always thought of food as fuel. And then when you know, but we totally enjoy stuff. Like, everyone has their favorite foods, but there's just there's so much more meaning to it when I'm going to let you talk about that, Lynne. But there's just so much more meaning when you enjoy what you're taking in. But so, Lynne, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you, Amy. And I can't wait to get started because, like you, I mean, to me, it's a shame that people don't get always that food is pleasure. Food is communion. It's a sacrament. It's gathering. It's family. It's friends. It's all kinds of things. It's the glue
Mhm.
that together in so many ways, both physically and spiritually. And uh, everyone is so busy now, with longevity and making sure that and then there are all the new drugs so that you won't eat. Uh, and I am here today with you as a token grandma, okay?
Thank you.
Uh-huh. I am here to speak for all grandmas throughout history and in the future that, you know, food is love.
Food is
It's
love.
actually love. Let's not forget that. And so my point of view about food is not as a restaurateur or a, raconteur or whatever. I'm a grandma. I have a kitchen table and I know how to use it. And I want other people to know how to use it because that's where it starts. That's where your kids learn your values, including your values around the earth, around sustainability, which, that's our buzzword today. But um, food isn't just food.
Yeah.
And looking at my grandma and my ancestors, half the family was Mormon. So I come with a peculiar perspective there. It wasn't a religion that I grew up practicing, but it was a culture that I still appreciate because, oh my gosh, were these folks amazing when it came to preserving food,
Mhm.
growing and saving it and sharing it. Very important in a Mormon family that you have a cupboard full and you can feed your neighbors, you can feed anybody who needs food, and you value that.
Mhm.
You so a thing that bugs me these days is that, and I have three kids and I have three grandkids and hoping for more. And I see how extremely busy they are, driving everywhere, trying to do everything for their children. And I get that. But if you're eating out of a bag in the back of a car, you're missing some stuff.
Mhm.
Very important. And people talk about screen time, which, yeah, that's not a good thing either, I don't think. But I don't, if you're eating out of a bag, first of all, that is the definition of unsustainable eating, right? Because you've got plastic containers and you have paper that you don't need to, and so on.
Well, there's zero nutrition in that too.
Let's not even talk about how crappy the food is that you're
Right.
eating. But if you look at it from every aspect, the cultural aspect, what a loss. The paper and plastic aspect, what a loss.
Mhm.
The nutrition of the food, what a loss. I mean,
Mhm.
we could go on. So the sustainable aspect is really, really important. but it kind of comes naturally with eating good, real, whole food. If you're eating honest food, real food, mostly plants, you're not creating waste. It goes together. First of all, if you've grown the food,
Right.
you're in a whole different category, in my view. And if your kids are growing food with you, kids will eat what kids grow. They
Hmm.
don't throw, they want it, they eat it because they understand it and they enjoy it.
Hmm.
On anyone listening, if you've ever grown anything with a kid, you know it's thrilling for them. And that even if it's peas that they've grown on a vine and they've seen those beautiful flowers and they've seen how it twists around the thing, and then the little peas come out and then they open up the pod, that kid is going to eat those peas for
Yeah.
the rest
There's so much
of the night.
respect and there's so much like excitement that comes
And
from an appreciation.
beautiful. It's beautiful.
Mhm.
So it doesn't need packaging, you know. You just put it on the table. You don't need to cook it. You just
Right.
eat it.
Absolutely. I don't know that I've ever actually cooked fresh peas. I always eat them. They don't even make it to the house most of the time. I don't
Right.
I have never been able to grow that many, like enough that I would need to like freeze or whatever. I just eat them. And
Yeah.
same with green beans.
All of it. If you're a gardener, and I'm not a great gardener at all. I mean, I was a city girl, LA, right? So first of all, I never knew anything about weather. I never saw weather. Didn't know what it was. So it's taken me a long time to learn ordinary things about growing food, but I'm like that little kid. It's so exciting when it works and when this stuff comes up out of the dirt and
Totally.
then pick it. And another thing all of y'all know is that the only tomatoes that taste really wonderful are the tomatoes you grow and eat in August, not year round. You
Right.
have to eat tomatoes when the tomatoes are ripened by the sun in the summer.
Right.
And also, we have found that there are a couple of types of tomato that grow really well here. I'm on the coast, so it's not hot and it's mostly sunny, but we grow the little tiny, the sweet 100s and the sun golds.
The fun golds. Yep.
And people who drive up to my place in the summer know to walk that way through the raised beds and pick tomatoes. They're like candy.
They're like candy. Totally.
They're gorgeous. They're beautiful color and they're delicious. And they are absolutely wonderful for you unless you're on an anti-inflammation diet, which I know some people are on, and they don't want you to have nightshade plants. But for the most part,
Sure.
we can pretty much all eat them. No packaging, no cooking, no sauce, no nothing. You just pick it and eat it.
Yep.
So that is about the height of sustainability in my book. And then when the plant is done, he goes in the compost. So all good, all good. Not one single thing wasted there.
Right.
You eat the seeds, you eat the skin, everything. It's brilliant.
Absolutely. Can I tell you a funny story, Lynn?
Well, it's your show. Go for it.
I grew up a Mormon.
Did you?
Yeah,
Then you know
I know.
what I'm talking about. And that's why you're doing this whole show on sustainability.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and when after I introduced you, I was thinking, even as you were talking, I was thinking about diets. Like we're all dieting. We're all trying to lose weight and look perfect and all this stuff. But there's zero enjoyment to, when you're dieting. Like you're just like, I'm depriving myself of things that I actually enjoy in order to feel
You
something.
for bringing that. Now, do you have a story to go with your being Mormon, or can I just jump in here and tell you that the reason I wrote this book is I'm diabetic. I'm a type 2 diabetic. And I've known that since I was in my 40s
Hmm.
because I had gestational diabetes, which many women in the audience are going to go, yeah, that's right. Back in the day, though, this was 1975 when I had my first child. And yes, I'm older than dirt. I'll be 79 in a few weeks. And proud of it, by the way.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, I'm still standing.
I need to hook you up with my friend Andy.
So, I have known all that time that I was diabetic, and the information that we got and the direction that we got from the medical community back in the day was really lousy. I mean, they didn't know enough, but they, of course, didn't say they knew. They didn't know. They just said, yeah, so lose some weight, keep your weight down, which I wasn't particularly overweight, but they just said, one doctor said, you want to weigh what you weighed in high school. Okay. Um, and of course, anyone with a metabolic disease like this knows that because it is a malfunction of your hormones, particularly insulin, it makes losing weight
Dearly.
difficult, if not impossible. So I wrote this book because over the years I researched, I read, I found, I experimented, and I kept myself in very good range just by doing the things I knew to do, eating, moving, sleeping.
Mm.
And still to this day, the best advice you will get from an endocrinologist is they'll give you some metformin, which, by the way, is a great drug. Metformin actually has life extending properties now. It's become a chic, fashionable longevity drug of all things.
Mm.
So if you are prescribed metformin, don't worry about it, just take them. They're good. And so, and then there's the statin argument, but if you have type 2 diabetes, they will probably want you to take at least a very small dose of a statin because of things that happen to you related to your type 2 diabetes. But I wrote this book because if you do what I tell you, if you eat the way I tell you in this book, which is to eat gorgeous, delicious food, and all illustrated here, um, just eat what I tell you and enjoy it, and don't eat crap. You will be amazed. The weight will drop off. You won't need a diet because one of the things, for example, that I'll tell you, oh, here's a thing we just had the other night. So good in front of the fire. Salmon and
Cute.
cucumbers and toast. So good. Um, Here's the thing. I'm a grandma. So my advice about almost everything is, honey, sit down, have some soup. And I stand by that. Soup is the answer to almost everything in your kitchen. It's the answer to using up what you have.
Mhm.
Eat you have. Don't go to the store. Eat what you have. It's the answer to having something that you can use several different ways that will last beautifully for a week, 2 weeks, that you can freeze, that your friends will go, how did you do this? It's that good. And this mushroom soup, for example, is like 4 ingredients, and it's made of, guess what? Mushrooms. And by now, everybody knows how nutritious a mushroom is.
Mhm.
Do you? Okay. Mushrooms, great food, not expensive, fresh mushrooms. Don't get the fancy ones. No, no, no. Just get the cheap ones. And if you can forage, great. And you know how to find them, good. I don't. I'll kill myself if I do
Yeah,
that.
I don't trust myself.
No. So just go buy the mushrooms at the farmer's market or the best place you can buy them. And you saute them with some onions and you put some broth in and you cook it for a while. And then, and I'm not adding cream. I'm putting it in the blender. That's it. But oh, and I use some olive oil, I think, in it. You can use a little butter if you want to. But right at the end, you add some bourbon. And all of a sudden,
I'm
you've
so
got this
alive.
amazing soup, and then you put some chopped parsley on top. And maybe you put a little yogurt on top, like I do in the picture. And trust me, um, I had a guy one time say, Lynn, you didn't tell me how much of it to eat. So I ate the whole recipe and I didn't feel great afterwards. Well, it was enough for 6 people. So I don't feel responsible for his tummy afterwards, but um, it's that good. It's amazing. And we all know that we grew up with mushroom soup coming out of a can when you wanted to make one of those casseroles or whatever with mushroom soup.
Yep.
You opened a can. Well, just make it. It's amazing. There's another soup in the book that is basic grandma ammo. It's I call it genius soup because can you guess? You can't guess why.
I can't guess why.
Amy, it's genius. Absolute genius. Because it's celery, onions, and carrots. It's the same base that every Italian grandma, French grandma, South American, it's the same basic idea. You take what you have, inexpensive stuff, you saute it, you throw some broth in there, and then you open up your crisper and you got that spinach in there that you really meant to do. Okay, no, throw that in. You
Hmm.
got to in that, throw that in. You got cabbage in there, throw that in. Clean your fridge out and dump it in the genius soup. Some tomatoes are good if you've got them. Canned tomatoes is good, a box of tomatoes, dried tomatoes from the summer. You've got them because you're Mormon. Um, right?
I don't
Um,
have dried tomatoes, but I do have tomatoes. I missed a gardening season this year. I'm out.
you were moving.
I was moving
Yeah, that's a good excuse. But anyway, that's
this
genius
year.
soup. And now you can make a pasta out of it. You can make a casserole out of it. You can make a Greek soup out of it. You can make beans out of it. You can eat for a week of 10 days
Hmm.
from that thing that you've made for practically no money and practically no effort. And it didn't come wrapped in anything.
Yep.
And it didn't come in plastic. And you can put it in a jar. Don't we love mason jars?
You love mason jars.
Yeah. And if you have mason jars, that's the solution to an incredible amount of the trash that you're making in your kitchen that you shouldn't be making in your
Right.
kitchen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, my freezer, I have an upright freezer and the door that has all the it's all jars. Like I have several that are like veggie pasta sauce and I've got my broth and I've got a couple things of baked beans and some soups, chili.
Go back to the diet thing.
Okay.
First of all, I want no one to ever feel like they're on a diet again. I want everyone to be enjoying every bite or every slurp of food that they eat.
Mm.
It's a matter of whole food, real food, and mostly plants. Doesn't have to be all plants, but I want you eating, for example, you're going to go, "No, I don't know how." I'll tell you how. I want you eating greens, dark greens, if at all possible, 3 times a day. And you're going to get up tomorrow morning and you're going to go, how the heck am I going to eat dark greens for my breakfast? I'll tell you how.
I have spinach
It's,
every morning with my eggs.
yeah, there are lots of wonderful things that you can do. So as a habit, that's a habit we should all develop. And maybe you wind up only doing it 2 times that day, but you're not eating healthy if you're not eating leaves all the time.
Hmm.
Not salads, but there are so many wonderful ways to eat leaves. Make it a habit. And then one of the most fun things that I like to do is just have that pretty little pot sitting on the sink with water in it and a whole bunch of parsley in it because it's pretty. And you realize almost every meal you make, you can snip some parsley off. And parsley, which we used to throw away, it used to come in the plastic package of steak that you got at the butcher.
Oh, really?
Mhm. They would, to make it look good, they would stick parsley in there, and we would get it home, throw it away. Okay, you should have thrown the steak away and eaten the parsley. You'd be a much healthier person because of the way they were raising the steaks in those days. Um, but parsley is brilliant food.
Mhm.
And uh, your friend Janet that was here, she does the same thing I do, which is you want to eat the tops of the carrots and you want to eat the tops of the beets. Carrot tops make great pesto. You're going, wait a minute, what? Yes, pesto can be made from all kinds of different greens. Arugula, you
Yeah.
can make pesto out of olives. There are all different ways to make pesto. And it's one of those terrific ways to use up a whole bunch of greens that are kind of, maybe a little iffy. Run the water over them, throw the ones away, the little leaves that are just finished,
Mhm.
but use what you have. And pesto is brilliant. We make our pizza with pesto. Um, and of course, we use cornmeal crusts, or we don't. And in my method for you not to diet anymore, I don't want you eating flour, from, wheat flour. The only wheat flour that I eat at this point is einkorn wheat that's grown locally, that's not GMO, that's the real thing. And I eat it in a sourdough bread from a local bakery, whole grain, so on. Other than that, no, no wheat,
Mm.
because none of it that's grown commercially is worth putting in your body. And what you'll find is if you just say, really, no wheat? Okay, that means no bagel, no croissant, no, oh, wait, you can have donuts. And I'll tell you how right here in my book. Um, okay, see that?
I do.
Mm-hmm. You bake it. It's made with pumpkin and nut butter and nothing bad. And you
That's
can,
it? Pumpkin and nut
what?
butter? Pumpkin and nut
Yep.
butter? That's it?
Well, there's some other things in there. Oh, actually, I'm using coconut and almond flour in this particular recipe,
Okay.
but no wheat, and salt, vanilla, um, but a teaspoon of buttermilk, apple cider vinegar, eggs or replacement, and then the sweetener. Let's talk about sweeteners because so many people have the unfortunate misconception that sweeteners, alternative sugars, are bad for you. And they're absolutely, if you use, and you might need to write this down, allulose, terrible name, great sweetener. It's just made from whole food. It's squished out of food. There's nothing wrong with it at all. You don't get any digestive upset. It tastes just sweet, exactly like sugar. And it has no calories and it gives you no spike in your glucose. So you can, and the brownies for breakfast, are made from pumpkin and nut butter. Again, because that combination is just like using flour and grease, but it's more moist, it tastes better, and it's great food. It's whole food.
Hmm.
So you diet my way, and you'll be eating joyfully at every meal. And you can't tell people only eat ounces of this and 4 grams of that. No, no, no. I don't journal. I don't weigh and measure. No, I eat until I'm done. And if you're eating real food, whole food, guess what? You can only eat so much. And then your body goes, okay, you're done. If you're eating Doritos, those were actually designed, you know this, they were designed by guys in a building in New Jersey to addict you.
Hmm.
And I'm not making this up. I mean, this information is out there.
Right.
Any kind of processed food that you find in those middle aisles in the grocery store was designed to keep you eating. And
Right.
so if you don't ever want to diet again, all you have to do is stop eating crap and eat great food,
Hmm.
whole food, real food, mostly plants. There you go. It's that easy.
Awesome. I mean, I think that I mean, I have always I I always try to eat different colors, like have, lots of colors in my meals.
Yeah.
And that's when we started doing spinach for breakfast. Oh, my light's right in my eyes. But and I had another thought. Let's see if I can find it
That's always hard.
again. Uh, I think that, I think that's it's so true. I think, when you're eating whole foods, then you are satisfied quicker because they're more nutrient dense, and like
There are
dense would be
nutrients that
heavier.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly right. Plus, they are satisfying you on different levels. They smell good. I mean, if you've never really enjoyed arugula, I would challenge you to chop it and sniff it and not go, it's perfumed. It's
Spicy.
intensely added. So your food is meant to be beautiful. It's meant to feel good. It's meant to satisfy you in all these different ways. And if you're not being satisfied, then you keep eating. So I want you to think about that. We started with the word joy because yeah, it should all be sparking joy, um, to be quoting our famous organizer. Um, and the more you enjoy your food, the less of it you'll find you really need to eat to fill your tummy up.
Mm, right.
But let's talk timing too. And I know we're supposed to be talking sustainability, but I feel like it's just like we should be noticing from the earth all the time. The earth has cycles, and the earth cannot be worked around the clock
Mhm.
every day. Neither can you. We have a medical establishment that learned in medical school that sleeping was for wimps. And there was actually one guy that started that. I realized he has a name and found there's a history there. Why do medical students not get to sleep? Well, it was because this one weirdo who was running this medical school decided that you were just wasting everybody's time if you slept. It turned out, by the way, after he died, that he was a cocaine addict. But we still retain this tradition in medical schools that sleep is just for wimps or for badly uh, behaved patients, I guess.
Right.
But it's important to know that just like all those birds and bees out there in the field must sleep to survive, you must sleep to survive. And you must sleep to regulate your hormones and to regulate your cellular cleanup, the autophagy that takes place when you're deeply asleep. And the only way that can really work is if you've left enough time between your last meal and the first meal of the next day. So, a habit that I hope a lot of us, more of us, will adopt is eating earlier, eating fewer meals in the middle of the day, and then sleeping soundly and happily a long time, 8 hours, 9 hours, whatever you can manage. And then eating in this, they're calling it what, intermittent fasting or time restricted eating, whatever, but just be sensible about it and try and eat toward the middle of the day and try not to eat after. I know everyone works, but make your meal heavy in the middle of the day and your last meal, if you possibly can, either skip it or make it 4, 5 o'clock, maybe 6 o'clock. And then if you're in bed by 9, you've left 3 hours. That's minimal. And this is very important if you don't want to diet. I want you to eat everything you want, but eat it at a sensible time of the day, not too late.
Hmm.
And, and if you're sitting on the couch eating pizza, watching Jimmy Kimmel, I'm going to have to come give you a granny slap. Just not good. It is not good. First of all, because pizza. Second of all, because TV. Um, Jimmy, love you, but um, that timing is extremely important to keeping yourself healthy and regulated and never having to diet. I don't want you to diet. I don't diet.
Mm. Mm. I mean, I remember what I was going to bring up before.
Good, what?
And it was just when how how much it warmed me when you said I'm speaking as a grandmother. Like I just consider me your grandmother because my grandmothers were so they were I don't want to say food obsessed, but like when I went to my grandmother's in Connecticut, she always had salad and she always had, she was making pasta sauce. And so
Good
um,
food.
she always fed us. And it's a big thing in my family. Like this is not the Mormon side of my family at all, but um, all my aunts and my uncle, whenever we get together, we have a really good meal together. And it's something that I miss a lot since we've all spread out. But I think it's so true. Like you enjoy it so much when you have a variety of foods and when you have, good company with you. It means so much more. And your grandmother's always looking out for healthy food, obviously. I
But
just
also, Granny's got a lot to do. So she doesn't do any more than she has to do. And this particular granny, I raised 3 kids as a single mom and was the sole source of support for them. So I was working my tush off all the time. I didn't have time
Mhm.
to do anything that I didn't need to do. So the kids learned early that we went grocery shopping together. They learned how to read a label. I mean, 4 or 5 years old. They knew that I was not going to buy anything that had icky stuff in it.
Mhm.
So, and we had to do the grocery shopping together. And then when we cooked and prepared a meal, they all had stuff they needed to do. They set the table. They stirred the pot, they loved cooking. Kids love to cook.
Mhm.
They enjoy it. And it tastes so much better when they make it. Kids eat what kids will cook. Kids eat what they cook. And whenever I hear anybody talking about their kid being fussy about food or whatever, it's make your kid cook.
Yeah.
That'll fix that
Them
real
cook what they
quick.
want to eat,
Yeah.
right?
And they clean up too. I always felt strongly that I wasn't their servant, I was their teacher.
Yeah.
And uh, I think it's huge in a family. But that's all culture that comes around the kitchen table, around knowing your way around a knife and fork,
Hmm.
which I understand now there are a couple of generations of kids that have grown up not using utensils. You don't need utensils to eat chicken bits and burgers.
True story. Yeah.
So all the grandmas standing behind me now are going,
Generation.
uh-huh,
Yeah.
uh-huh.
Yep.
That's right.
What I and one of the things about going back to my grandmother's is it rubs off. it rubs off. Like I was saying, my aunts and uncle, they all feel that same way. And my grandmother just like passed that passion on for, feeding everyone and making sure that everyone, is nourished. And so that it has also rubbed off onto me. And I totally have that. I was just having a conversation with someone um not too long ago about love languages. And one of mine is to make sure that people have
Food.
that they have food and that they're healthy. And
Absolutely.
my other one is that you get home safely. Like I was in a car accident, and so I always like when I know someone's driving, I'm just like, please, just get home safely, okay? And
Yeah.
and and somebody called me mom, and I was like, I was offended by that, and then I was like, I get, it's a mom vibe, I guess, and I can't really shake it because it matters. It just,
Nothing wrong with that at all. There's so many ways to be a mom, you know.
yeah.
Um, yeah, nothing wrong with that, I don't think, personally.
But
But
I love your passion for this, Lynn. It really is very grandmothery, and it's a beautiful thing. Like we just need more people that are like, you know what, sit down at the table, put your phone away, and eat this meal, and help me
right.
make it.
Yes. And one more thing, the education of your kids or family members or friends occurs around the table. The conversations that you have around the table are some of the most formative in your life. If you haven't had conversations around a table, you're missing a huge chunk of your education. And I didn't really appreciate that or understand it particularly because I was always in such a hurry. And, we had dogs and cats and kids and their friends and my friends and so on. My social life was around the table because I could, I had these kids. And so clients would be there at the table and my friends would be there at the table and the neighbors sometimes would be at the table and my kids' friends would be at the table. And it all had to work. But my kids later in their careers told me that they learned more around our table than they ever did in grad school about marketing, about business. That I had my business at home uh, for their teenage years. I started my own business in 1987, a creative services business. So my office was at home, and they all knew that when the phone rang, no matter who was barking or fighting or whatever, it all had to stop. And if I couldn't answer the phone, one of them had to answer the phone. And they learned very, very early to say, Lynne Bowman Creative Services. And I didn't appreciate, nor particularly did they at the time, that they left the house at the age of 18 knowing more about how an office ran, how a business needs to go, how to be interviewed, how to do a resume, all those basic things that nobody teaches in high school,
Right.
but that if you don't know, you have a rough time getting started in business. They learned that at the
Right.
kitchen table. Or at my office, which was actually the dining room table, right? And um, people, if you're not sitting down with your kids, they don't learn how to argue in a constructive way with family members and friends. They don't learn who you are and what you do and what you stand for and what you won't stand for. The table is where you learn how to share food and where you learn how to make food taste a little better, how to season food. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of
Mhm.
the things we only really learn at grandma's or mom's knee or at the kitchen table. You learn it preparing food, shopping for food, cleaning up after food. And people think of it as just sort of maintenance or like you said, fuel or whatever. No, it's central
Yep.
to our culture.
Yep.
So is your culture Arby's? You know? Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, and I would even go further a little bit just to say like food is love. Food can be love. Food is like education.
Yeah.
It's central to so many things. I mean, as you were talking about raising your kids, I was thinking about how with my grandmother in Connecticut, who's no longer with us, everyone's scattered now, but we used to always, for the holidays, we would always have an evening together. And I was just thinking about how much I miss that because we would always, all in one place, like how it just doesn't happen anymore, which is just, it's too bad. But just you learn
You
about
do it.
your family and where you
You
come from
do it.
and where people are going and where, how things evolved in your family. Like my dad's mom did not know her parents, she didn't know her grandparents.
Mm. But yeah, you can do it. You can have a joyful meal with friends, with family, whenever you decide to. And as I mentioned in the book, if you don't have a family or friends, food is a great way to get some. You just start making that thing, baking the thing in there, and you open the door and let some of that chocolate donut or brownie fragrance go down the hall, and pretty soon
Yep.
you may have a new friend.
Yep.
Uh, Food is absolutely the best possible way to make friends
Yeah.
or to um, let your family know that they're valued and loved, even if it's an auntie, that you don't see very often, whatever.
Yep.
Invite her for a meal. And one of the things in my book that I hope you will find and appreciate is that it's all easy, forgiving. It's not difficult. I mean, this Christmas, it was just, I had 12 around the table. And it was decided that we were going to have a brisket for various reasons. We decided we don't want to do the fish, we don't want to do the turkey, we want to do a brisket. Well, I'd never made a brisket that I could remember. So I looked up recipes and oh my gosh, the complexity
I
of
have
this
not attempted it yet.
this process that you do, and it involved an entire bottle of Pinot Noir, let me tell you, a lot of vegetables and so on, and the trip to the only butcher I could find who actually had briskets that I could buy, because we live in the country, so it meant driving to Palo Alto, which is 22 miles over the hill from me, to get one. All that by way of saying, okay, sometimes you want to get crazy and do a special thing, whatever. But for the most part, people are so appreciative of you cooking anything
Mhm.
for them. The simplest thing that you make for your friends and family. They are delighted to sit down and eat that food that was prepared by you for them.
Right.
It's a religious experience. It's magic because so few people are still managing to do it. And a lot of bad jokes over this holiday about the fact that we used to have full-time grandmas in the kitchen all the time, slaving away. That's why you had those holidays that you can't forget,
Mhm.
because grandma was in there with her apron on, cussing, pulling the thing out and basting the thing and
Up at
frosting the
2 in the morning.
Yes, it was a lot of hard work. I can make it a lot simpler for you. This book has a lot of ideas. There are others. It doesn't have to be that difficult. It can be relatively simple, and you can get your friends involved, of course, in the process. My daughter always brings her Caesar salad to our little family events because everybody who doesn't love a great Caesar salad. She does a massaged kale
Mhm.
Caesar that is excellent and not hard for her to make. And it lasts in the fridge for a couple of days. Uh, I actually sneak some out so that I'll have some the next day, right? Because it usually gets eaten
Right.
up. But and also this Christmas we had a bûche de Noël made by my granddaughter and her BFF. If you've ever tried to make one of those puppies, forget about it. It's very complicated. It takes 2 days. It's the French traditional cake that looks like a log with little mushrooms on it. I mean, the mushrooms are made out of meringue. It's
Wow.
gorgeous. And if you want to do that, fine, but you don't have to.
Hmm.
You don't. It can be so easy. A pasta and a salad, boom. Or just a big fat bowl of soup and some great bread
Yep.
of the type that I described already. Um, and people are so grateful. Little wine helps too, right?
Absolutely.
Uh,
That sounds awesome. How did your brisket come out?
It was fabulous. It was really, really good.
Awesome.
And yeah, we're not big meat eaters. So, and these days it's gotten so expensive. I mean, frankly, and if you've got a crowd, and I needed to do a 6.5 pound brisket, so multiply that by, and frugality, as you know, just comes with the territory. I don't care how much money you have. There's a certain amount that we feel it's right to spend
There's like
on
a
certain,
max, there's a cap.
yeah. So, and we live at the coast, so we do eat fish when we can and so on, which has become very expensive. But going back to the whole sustainable idea, and we're in this little nexus of sustainable farmers and ranchers. The regenerative ranching movement is huge here
Yeah,
at our farmers markets and from neighbors. Our neighbors are all selling um, goat and sheep and pork and beef at um, reasonable, they're kind of expensive, but this is such high quality
right,
food that you don't mind paying for it. And you don't eat a ton of it. It's a treat and you eat some, but you're mostly eating vegetables, remember? Whole food, real food, mostly plants.
right.
You can do it.
Yeah. This is super fun. I love grandmas. I don't have any left, but so this is really nice.
Can
Uh,
can I sign up anytime you need one? Will you let me know?
oh my gosh, yes. Yes. Um, but so I'm curious like where this all started, Lynn. Like when did you like you've lived quite a life and now you're writing cookbooks and you're talking about food waste and eating healthy. And so when did this start for you?
I think I think it started early, Amy, because my mom was not well for most of the time that I was
Okay.
conscious growing up when I was a teenager. She died when I was 18. She had kidney disease.
Mm,
So I saw what ill health does to a family. And it destroys a family. It destroys a family's wealth financially. It just takes you down.
right.
Um, Now, maybe even more than it used to. When my mom died, all of a sudden, the dog had to be given away, the house had to be sold, my dad started another life, my older brother and sister were gone, and I was standing there literally with my luggage on the curb.
Mm,
Um, and so I had this deep sense of what that does. But I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to have a family. And so when I did, and that's a whole other show to tell you what happened first time around, why I left North Carolina in 1980 with a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 4-year-old,
yeah.
and what we could carry, and took a train across the country to Sunnyvale, California. Whole other story. Um, I always had this keen sense that it was about health. It was, if you don't have your health, you really you can't be
Nothing else
anything.
counts. Nothing else counts if you're not healthy.
This counts. So here I had these three little ones, and I was determined that I was going to be the last one standing, that I was going to do what I needed to do. I was going to take care of them and be there for them. And so when I found out that I was diabetic, all of a sudden it was, oh, okay,
Screeching.
that's my job,
Yeah.
um, is figuring that out. And in those days, you were told, well, it's a progressive disease. It only gets worse. Well, guess what? Granny here, looking at 80. Who won?
Right. Totally. Yeah. I mean, what I was thinking when I said, nothing else counts is you can be wealthy, but what good is that if you feel miserable? So we
Well, it
have
isn't
to,
even feeling miserable.
and
You
where is
can't,
like you were saying, like, where's the joy?
yeah, you can't, if you're in pain, if you're weak, you can't function. In fact, and I mean, I was the only one I know who didn't get COVID, because your immune system benefits so hugely from doing what Granny has told you to do. If you eat, sleep, and move the way we've talked about, you will be so far ahead of most of the things that take most people down.
Mm.
Things can still happen. You can get sick, you can be run over, all these things. But if you're not smoking, if your alcohol consumption is very limited or non-existent, and if you're eating really well, if you're sleeping well, if you move, and I have the privilege, the luxury of taking classes 4 days a week. I work out. And one of those is lifting, power
Mhm.
lifting. I can now deadlift 95 pounds. Mhm. Do not mess with Granny.
I struggle with a 50-pound bag of chicken food. That's
Okay, but
the
it is a privilege. I mean, this is something that doesn't just
right.
happen unless we put time and energy. And I'm delighted at this point in my life that I have the time and energy and the wherewithal to be able to do this. It's a joy. And also, Amy, you've probably seen these guys on YouTube that are talking about longevity and health and so on, and they come on kind of sweaty in a short sleeve t-shirt, talking about what you have to do to for longevity. So it's like, you're 35. The
What do you
hell do
know
you
about longevity?
nothing, right? Until you've been up all night with a few crying babies and been chased by a homicidal ex-husband, then talk to me about longevity. But not in your gym with your sweaty t-shirt. Get out of here. Anyway, so it's been a lifelong thing for me because I was just determined that I wanted to see my enemies floating down the river. I didn't want it to be me.
Hmm.
Uh, and that's a bad quote from some Japanese martial arts guy. But um, yeah, I wanted to stay alive and feel good.
Mhm.
And so
Well,
this is
there's
how
no
you
sense
do
in
it.
staying alive if you don't feel good. That's just
Yeah.
you.
And so many people don't make the connection that, all the people that are studying how to get passive income from that and, Bitcoin and everything, if you're not really healthy, your money will all be gone.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I'm sorry that we don't have a better healthcare system in this country, but we don't. And until we do, your rear end is at great risk, if you don't really consciously take care of yourself. And
Right.
I don't mean working out at the gym all the time.
Right. Yeah. You're right. I mean, until the healthcare system is better. I mean, it's on
Or
us. We have to do it
exist,
ourselves. But we should be
it's,
doing that anyway.
yeah, we don't even have a healthcare system. We have a sick
Hmm.
system. But yeah, so you ask why and wherefore. I think that's the story is I just woke up earlier than most people do to how important it is.
Mm,
So it took precedence. It was a priority for me. I didn't feel I had the luxury of not doing it.
right,
So I learned how to do it and I did it.
right. So your mom was sick when and passed away when you were young, and then you had the diabetes diagnosis. You were still young because you said it was your second child, right?
It was my first child. He was 10 pounds when he was born, which is typical of a gestational diabetic baby.
Okay.
So, which who knew? But at the time, they didn't examine me for it. They didn't test, the healthcare was just,
Yeah.
and it was all guys, love you guys, but there's no comparison between the maternal care I got in 1975 and what my daughters got when their babies were born, um, and my son's wife. Watching the joy and community around the births of these babies surrounded by women
Hmm.
and family.
Right.
We got to be there. I was there. And that's huge. My youngest daughter was the first baby born in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, by C-section who was allowed to have skin to skin contact with her mother after she was removed from my body.
Mm.
They didn't do that. They took the baby and ran before I had an absolute fit. And I got the La Leche League involved when my doctor finally confessed to me that no, the plan was you have a thing that goes up and they cut you open and they take the baby and they take the, no, 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 no. I want that baby on my body. Well, but we have, I want that baby on my body. And by Jove, they relented and the baby got to be on. But that was what it was like in the 70s, what kind of a fight we had
Right.
for a female point of view in medicine.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm not sure when it was, but I know, I all the movies, the old movies when the man would be pacing the hallways and not even in there. And so I don't know when it changed that the man was able to go in, but it's so wild to me. And now, now people want to do it at home.
My youngest grandchild was born in a bucket,
In a
in a
bucket.
pool, a pool of water, and they had a wonderful experience with it. And she was born at like 12:15, and I couldn't be there because they were in another part of the country, and it wasn't possible. But she was born about 12:15, and they were home at 3 or 4 in the morning.
Mm.
Boom.
Wow. Technology, man. Things have just really advanced.
Well, and that's not an advancement. That's going back to
Right.
how female communities supported each other in the things we knew how to do, having babies and cooking and
True.
cleaning.
I mean, before hospitals, how was it done?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's thrilling for me to see, and of course now more women are coming out of medical school than men. Uh, we did, yeah, that I didn't see that one coming. Um,
Yeah.
and we are re-examining things like what a bad idea it is to sleep. It isn't. It's a great idea. And if you're a medical student, it's still a good idea to
Right.
sleep.
Right. Deprived of sleep is never good for anyone. Says the
No.
girl who just started sleeping a year ago. Um,
Oh, girl,
but
I'm glad you're now, though.
I'm sleeping some. But
Okay, but you're going to listen to my advice, and we're going to talk again in the near future.
okay.
And you're going to say to me, I
Okay.
didn't know how much better my life was going to be with your granny advice.
There's never enough. There's never enough granny advice. That's for sure. So, Lynn, I feel like I could talk to you for a long time. I feel like there's so much that we need to touch on, but I want to be respectful of your time. But when I say the word sustainability to you, what does that come, what comes to mind for you?
So many things. Clean, um, not messy. When you're clean about what you do, when you're thoughtful, mindful in what you do, it tends to take a sustainable track. The things that aren't sustainable are creating trash and then not uncreating that trash, just moving it on.
Mhm.
That's sustainable. Growing food with poison is unsustainable. You know, when you live in the country like I do, we've lived here for 28 years and we've never consciously ever used any kind of poison on anything here because you very quickly learn that it's unsustainable.
Mm.
It just takes everything down. And the owl will die because the owl will eat the mouse that's been poisoned.
Right.
That's a thing until you've lost one of your birdie friends, which I mean, they are our friends.
Mhm.
We hear them, we see them, they're dear to us.
We talk
And
to
so
them.
when one of those gorgeous creatures is downed by someone's thoughtless killing, I mean, I don't want mice in my shed either, but we use peppermint to get them out of there, right?
Right.
And
Right.
that annoys a lot of bugs, but
Right.
and ants and mice, but it doesn't kill them. So sustainable is living on the land and loving the land you live on. Um,
I love that.
it's
It doesn't
it's
have
so
to
much.
be complicated. I mean, it's actually, for me, so much of it is just simple. Like you're simplifying your life and going back to roots and not needing all the extra stuff.
It is simple, isn't it? That's what we want to know.
Yeah, totally. And so, Granny Lynn, uh, where can people find you?
I have a website, lynnebowman.com, LYNNE, BOWMAN. If you Google me, just spell that. There's another Lynne Bowman out there who does interesting things, but I'll pop up and you'll go, oh, that's her. Um, so I've made a lot of YouTubes about various things and um, been out here yakking for a while. My book is Brownies for Breakfast, and you can find it on Amazon. Here it is. And also, people enjoy it on Audible. When I first recorded it, I went, okay, is this kind of, I don't know. But people seem to really like hearing it because there are a lot of stories in here. It's me yakking, and they seem to enjoy driving along as we do now and listening to our Audible books. And then they go home and you can download the book, an ebook with the recipes and with the stuff that you can read again. But hearing it apparently is, I don't know how you feel. Do you listen to Audible books?
I do some.
Yeah. Is that it seems to hit people in a different
Well,
place.
sure. I mean, especially with the stories and from your own voice, but I think also some, did you see that flash? Some people like myself, I skip things accidentally when I'm reading recipes.
Do we do. Sure. We don't get all of it.
And so I do that often, and then I get to the end of the recipe, I'm like, oh, I should have not put that in right now. I was supposed to wait, but it'll be fine. But so to hear it first,
My recipes are generally you throw all the stuff in the pot and then you just cook it. Or you throw all this stuff in the blender and then you blend it.
yep,
I'm impatient. I'm messy. You've figured that out from listening to me. And I don't have time for a lot of BS when it comes to cooking. It's just, let's do this.
right.
And it's forgiving. You know, it's not fussy. It's putting a meal on the table for you and yours in a loving, brilliant, fabulous way.
Awesome. So Brownies for Breakfast is the book and lynnbowman.com. Are you on the socials at all?
I, uh, Yeah, sorta. But I want all of us to take our snoots out of the screen and cook.
Get in the kitchen. Get off the phone,
I'm
get in the kitchen.
If you want to get in touch with me, send me a message. Send a message to my website. You can sign up on my website on my list, which I don't send out a lot of stuff, but you'll get some stuff. You'll get some extra recipes that aren't in the book. But if you just fill out the contact form on my website, I will answer you. I appreciate hearing from people. I love to hear when you've made one of the recipes and how it worked and any suggestions you have. So get in touch with me that way. Happy to hear from anybody.
Awesome. I love that. I love sharing I love sharing recipes and I love sharing pictures. I'm a terrible photographer, but I love sharing pictures of what I've made. I did it yesterday on Instagram. I made this soup from one of my farmers. Um, it was a recommendation. It was a turnip apple soup, and it came out
Oh,
so good. And
send me that recipe. I want that one. And also, thank you for bringing that up because I think it's important to know that I took all the pictures in here myself. Oh, here's um, family
oh,
around the table,
yay!
dogs waiting for everybody outside.
Look at
Yeah.
them.
These were all pictures that because I obsessively took pictures of my food, right? Because I would just go, oh my gosh, this is
You're
so
that
beautiful.
person.
Yes. So no stylists were harmed in the making of this book. And I think it's important that you can make stuff that looks like my stuff. You don't need a stylist to have it beautiful,
Right.
you know?
The food will speak for itself.
Yes, it will.
Awesome. Well, Lynn Bowman, thank you so much for sharing this message. It's a different angle and I'm here for it. I love it. So folks, check out lynnbowman.com, Lynn with an E, and find her book and get in the kitchen, man. Get in the garden, get in the kitchen.